Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Ané Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you will have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey Vetrehabbers, in this episode, Ané and Ceola chat about one of the biggest challenges many veterinary rehabilitation therapists face, and that is building confidence. Now, this was a long and really valuable conversation, and we decided to split it up into two parts, and this is part one. Ceola is a veterinary physiotherapist, a university lecturer, anatomy enthusiast, and a mentor to rehabilitation therapists. And she shares her own journey from being a new grad who lacked confidence to becoming someone who now helps others develop theirs. Along the way, she discovered a number of practical strategies that not only improved her clinical skills, but also strengthened her business and ultimately transformed her confidence. Now, in this part one, we're going to dive into the foundations of confidence, the challenges many new grads experience, and the first practical steps you can take to start believing in yourself as a therapist. So I really hope you enjoyed this part one. But before we jump into today's episode, I have something really exciting to share. The website for this year's Vetrehab Summit is now live. So you can head over to vetrehabsummit.com to find out everything that we've got planned. This year is an extra special one because we're celebrating the 10th Vet Rehab Summit, and our theme is the brain. We'll be diving into the incredible role of the brain that it plays in movement, pain, learning, recovery, performance, behavior, and rehabilitation. It's a fascinating topic that influences every patient that we treat, and we've brought together experts from all around the world to share the latest science alongside practical strategies that you can use in the clinic every single day. Last year, we had more than 6,500 veterinary rehabilitation professionals from across the globe registered to attend, making it one of the largest online veterinary rehabilitation events in the world. The summit is completely free to attend, so if you're a veterinarian, a veterinary nurse, a physiotherapist, hydrotherapist, or a rehabilitation therapist, now is the perfect time to reserve your place. If you're an Onlinepethealth member, you will automatically get free access to the Vetrehab Summit. If you're not, head over to vetrehabsummit.com to sign up. We're also super excited to welcome Curacao as our gold sponsor again this year. Thank you, Curacao, for your support. A quick word from our sponsors before we head over to that part one. Support, prevent, and rehabilitate. That's the Paw Prosper way. We've built a portfolio of industry-leading brands like Walking Pets, Help 'em Up, Respond Animal Therapeutics, Fit Paws, and Blue Nine to give your patients the gold standard in care. And we have some big news. Paw Prosper is officially the new home of the Canine Rehabilitation Institute and Onlinepethealth. We're bringing the best products and the best online education together under one roof to help you and your patients thrive. And a special hello to the Onlinepethealth community. We're offering a one-time gift with your next order when you sign up today. So head over to pawprosper.com/OPH and join the movement in pet rehabilitation.
Hi guys, and welcome. Hi Ceola, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi Ané, it's so wonderful to be here, and I'm super excited to talk about this topic. I feel like it's really important for us as vet rehabbers.
I agree. So guys, if you're joining us today, welcome. We are chatting about confidence. I think this is a subject that we really actually need to revisit on a very regular basis because it's always coming up for us as professionals. So Ceola, with that, I'm going to hand over to you and you can share your thoughts on how we can build confidence as professionals.
Thank you so much, Ané. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ceola. So I am primarily a veterinary physiotherapist. I'm based in Bristol in the UK. I do wear a few other hats, though, which I'll talk about in a second. But I definitely came into this industry, probably like most of us, to be honest, for improving animal health and welfare. So I run a busy little mobile practice, and I actually see horses and dogs. I know a lot of people specialize. I personally, I love both. I find both so rewarding. On the canine side, for me, it's particularly like the post-op cases I love working with, and also working on cases where I can liaise with vets and behaviorists. I find that super rewarding as well. And then my passion, I guess, on the equine side, I would have to say is it's the body work. I just find it so amazing what we can do with our hands, like how we can help these animals like enhance movement and comfort and performance just by applying our hands in these certain ways. So I love my physio work, like I said, running that down in Bristol. But I do also actually have a kind of additional side to my career as well. So I am a university lecturer. So at the moment, I lecture veterinary anatomy at the University of Bristol, which I absolutely love. I am definitely a self-proclaimed anatomy geek, and you might be able to resonate with me there a little bit. And I also lecture veterinary physiotherapy on a postgrad course at ARU Writtle. And I love combining the teaching with my physio work. It keeps you really on top of things, and it's really rewarding. But the reason that I honestly feel so passionately about our conversation today and why I wanted to talk to Ané about this is I really struggled with confidence for years, to be honest. Like I was plagued, with like self-doubt. I felt those imposter style feelings. I just often didn't feel like I deserved to be where I was, and that someone was going to find out that I wasn't good enough and I shouldn't be doing what I was. And it was really tough, to be honest. And at that time, like I didn't really have anyone I could share those thoughts with. I didn't actually graduate with anyone I was really, really close with. So I didn't have any like peers or a mentor or anyone to talk about that with. And look, like eventually I figured it out. Things are really, really good now. I'm really happy with my business where I am. But it just took me years of like struggling through it alone. So that's where my third hat comes in, where for the past few years, I've actually been mentoring loads of new grads and early career therapists, really helping them to like set up their business or streamline their business, but also just to develop confidence in themselves. Because like I said, I did it all alone, and I just really wanted to be there for people so they don't have to do that like I did. And honestly, Ané, it's actually become like one of my favorite parts, I would say, of my work. It's just so rewarding knowing I can be that support person when I didn't really have anyone. So that is a little bit about me.
Before you move on, I've decided to interrupt you, and that's how we're going to do this. So the mentorship component, right? I agree with you. It's like it's so incredibly rewarding to do that. Did you become a mentor only when you felt confident and like you've got this, or did becoming a mentor actually help you become more confident and feel like you've got this?
Thank you, Ané. That is such a good question. I actually think that confidence is a constantly evolving process. I wouldn't say that I am 100% confident in it, like currently. I've developed it so much. And actually, you're right, like since being a mentor and realizing how much I can help other people with this, it's definitely boosted my confidence. But actually, I do think this is an evolving process. I'm not 100% confident all the time. And I try and explain that to my mentees as well, that of course you're going to have times when you doubt yourself, but it's what you do next. It's how you deal with that, I think, that's really powerful. And it's learning strategies that can help you in those times that you are feeling a little bit of that self-doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Amazing. So, like I said, that's a little bit about me and some of my passions and kind of why I'm in the industry. So we have a range of topics I would love to share with everyone today. And we will be starting off with mindset. I do think that any conversation about confidence, of course, we need to discuss mindset. However, I actually have quite a lot of other things I'd love to share with everyone, because mindset on its own is I mean, that's just a huge topic on its own, right? And I know you guys have had some amazing mindset coaches come and talk on your training and on your podcast, and huge, huge topics. So what I've decided is I actually would love to share some maybe a little bit more out of the box ways that you can kind of help improve your confidence, basically from my experience as a practitioner in the industry, and really my own journey of developing my confidence. And hopefully it just gives some people, like I said, another perspective on ways they can help themselves through this. So we will be looking at ways that you can be a bit more confident in your initial consults. We'll be looking at ways that actually, through developing your external image and how you put yourself out in the industry, that can develop your professional identity and solidify your confidence in yourself. We will also then be looking at how there's actually things you can do in your business with the organization and structure and systems that really help me to develop my confidence as well. And my hope is that anyone listening or watching this session will hopefully start to see that you're really not alone in your confidence. One of the big things is I really want people to talk about this more, because I felt like I couldn't admit it for years. So I would love it if people would be okay with acknowledging that they're struggling with confidence, but then realize that confidence can be improved. We can actively improve it. It's not just stuck as it is. And finally, I really hope that with today's session, I can give you guys some really practical, actionable things that you can do to help improve your confidence. So, Ané, should we dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so like I said, I wanted to start off with a few mindset shifts that were super helpful in my own confidence journey. So the first thing that really helped me to realize is that we actually can't possibly know everything. We really can't. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. When I realized that actually I should just take a step back, do my best, take my time, and act on what I did know, it meant that little voice that was in my head telling me, you should know all of this, it just started to pipe down a little bit. And I think I kind of realized that it's way better to pause and say, let me just double check something so that I know we're approaching this the best way. Or could you give me a bit more information about that? It's way better to do that rather than bluff and put some answer together that actually you really regret later. And then the biggest thing is it's just about educating yourself afterwards. If you don't know something, it's then about what you do next that matters. And I think this leads nicely onto the next kind of realization I think that I had, which was about mistakes, and the fact that it's not really about the mistakes you make, because look, we are going to make mistakes. Unfortunately, that's just the way of the world. I've made mistakes, and you might have made mistakes, but instead of beating ourselves up, it's about what we do next, because you beating yourself up about the mistakes that you made is not going to help your patient's outcomes. It's just not, and that should be our fundamental goal. So instead, let's try and shift our mindset about mistakes to thinking about more, how could we do better next time? What could we learn that could help improve us for next time, and therefore help our patients? Because like I said, we need to keep coming back to that fundamentally. The kind of third, I guess, big realization or important thing to consider for me was about comparison. Okay, I really feel like this is quite a problem with a lot of us. We end up scrolling through social media, looking at all these therapists going, I'm never going to have that perfect practice like them. They're so busy, they're so popular. But actually, that is not building us up. It's not helping us to be better for our patients. So actually, I really think it's powerful to, when you're going through maybe that social media feed, and I suggest this to my mentees who struggle with the comparison piece. If you're on your feed and you're scrolling through these different therapists, ask yourself the question, is looking at this content improving my confidence, my skills, and my knowledge as a practitioner? or is it not? And look, if the answer is yes, great, crack on. But if the answer is no, then your patients and you deserve you to just stop doing that, to just close that and try and stop it in your tracks. So that's something that I do now, because I used to do this quite a lot, and that's something that I felt was very useful for me. And the final mindset shift that I wanted to share with people was when I actually took a second and realized that I am making a positive impact on these animals' lives that I'm seeing. Because sometimes we're doubting ourselves, we're thinking, are we the best therapist for them? Am I doing everything I can? But actually, if you literally make like one small change in that dog's life, or release like one small area of tension in that horse, you will be improving their health and welfare. So you are going to be improving them. And look, over time, with more experience, you can do more of that, right? But that was really, really powerful for me as well.
Oh, I would love to add.
Yeah,
there are so many times when I have removed social media apps from my phone, even though that's part of my job, right? Because it's just that negative cycle of comparison, and sometimes just a negative spiral of scrolling is so destructive to us. And I think if we are on social media from a business perspective, because that's part of our marketing strategy, then we need to look at it for what it is, right? And when we're looking at other professionals' feeds, that's a good thing to do. We should be doing that if we're on social media to increase our reach and to reach new clients. Then we should be looking at it from the perspective of what are they doing with this post format that I like? What don't I like about it? And how could I do something similar to have either a similar outcome or a better outcome? Because the goal is to reach more clients or to educate more clients. And so I think be aware of why you're on social media. What is your goal there? And then that is how you should be consuming that content. You should be consuming it from the perspective of finding inspiration and then creating more content that's going to be great for you and your business. And I don't know how to do that without actually getting inspiration from other people, because social media is not my strong suit, right? And creating content for that space isn't something that I'm naturally good at. And many of you will be the same. We're not really video editors and creative people on that front. Our creativity and our passion lies elsewhere. So get your inspiration there. Find ways to replicate that and see it for what it is. It's a marketing tool. Other professionals are also using it as a marketing tool. So comparing yourself to them when really they're trying to market themselves doesn't make sense to do that. So remember what it is.
Yeah, I love that, Ané. It's like, again, viewing it, let's boil it down to, we're here for improving the animal's health and welfare, right? So yeah. You're right. If we're viewing it in a way to then improve the content that we can put out there, fantastic. But if we're viewing it in any other way, especially as it starts to have those negative thought cycles, it's just not going to help our actual patients. So yeah, I also do the same.
Don't delete it.
Yeah. And you're right.
Just for a while.
I do think that a lot of us in this industry, it doesn't come naturally. I'm the same. It is challenging. It takes some effort, but it can be obviously so powerful. But it's just making sure it's not at the detriment of ourselves, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, lovely. So I really hope that people listening might have found a few useful things from my own journey through those kind of mindset challenges. And next, I would love to move on to initial consults, because I know that the first time that you go and see a horse or a dog, or maybe other animals if you work with other animals, and the first time you meet a new client, it can be super nerve-wracking. Like it really can. And I, over the years, have just found that there's quite a few really practical things that I do that really help to set me up for kind of success in those scenarios. So the first thing that I am such an advocate for is gathering loads of initial information before you even turn up. okay? Because I really feel like the more information that we have, it means that the more we can prepare with, the less unknowns there are, and therefore the more confidence. Because, for example, like if you go to see a dog that has a condition that you actually maybe haven't seen before or you don't know much about, if you've gathered all that information beforehand, you can go and review your notes, you can go and look it up. Or maybe it's that like an owner says that they do a discipline that you've never heard of, like let's say horseball, for example. Instead of turning up and them just saying, oh, we do horseball, and you going, oh my gosh, I have no idea what that is, but I don't want to tell them, you can actually go and look that up, and it'll be easier to chat to the owner about that as well. So that's why I'm super keen, and this is what I do in my own business, is gather lots of information beforehand. So I would love to share what I do in my own business to gather lots of information. This doesn't mean that this is going to work perfectly for every business, and Ané, you might do some other things, you might not do some of these, but personally, this is what works for me. So I actually like to try and have a phone call with all of my new clients. I know that some people listening are probably like, oh, that's just not going to work for how my business works and my life works. But for me, it does. And I actually prioritize this. Okay. I think it's got tons of benefits. But from the confidence piece, firstly, you can gather more information and you can actually ask follow-up questions, because Ané, I don't know if you've found this, but sometimes when people fill in a form about their patient's issues or clinical history, sometimes they forget to put things, or they don't realize things are important. And actually, if we have just a phone call, we can really delve into those so much better and make sure we've got all the information we need. And so in the UK as well, we are required to get vet consent if the patient has any diagnosed conditions. And sometimes I've found just on a form, people forget to put some of those conditions, but on the phone, you can make sure you ask all of the information so you know if you need vet consent, which is great. As a quick side note, I've also found that using a phone call really helps with like your kind of communication confidence, because if you've chatted to someone on the phone first, rather than just turning up to their house and meeting them for the first time at the door, it's just way more comfortable, I've found, and builds a rapport. And actually, I truly believe that since I switched to always having phone calls, the number of inquiries, like email inquiries that led to bookings, has literally just, I mean, pretty much all of them now would book in. Whereas if you just get a message on Instagram and you send a few texts back and forth, I found that was maybe sometimes they would just fizzle out a little bit. So that's my experience, but I know it might not work for everyone. It just works super well for me.
Well, I really like this because I think so many people find phone calls uncomfortable, right? And so this is a super safe, easy first step to take you out of your comfort zone, right? To make contact and to establish a relationship, because you are establishing a relationship. And especially if it's a new client, like you said, that retention then, or that conversion to an actual client, is so much higher. So I think if you're struggling with your confidence, this is a fantastic step, because you can, you know, for me, it was a lot of fake it until I make it. I had to do a lot of faking until I was like actually feeling it. And this is a super easy way to fake it, right? You can have a confident voice. You don't have to have all the body language to go with it. You can just use your voice. And I think you're going to take yourself out of your comfort zone, which is going to push you to feel more confident in the long run. I love it. Great first step.
Definitely. And you can even have a bit of a plan for like a phone call. Say you got an inquiry via email, you can go and look up that condition, think about that patient, have a bit of a plan before you even pick up the phone. So I think that's why it's so helpful for building confidence, for sure.
And remembering that it's not about you, it's about them. And if you can just keep the conversation about them and their dog or their horse, that's going to make them feel seen, heard, and safe. And so you don't have to sell yourself on that phone call. You just need to listen to them and tell them, yes, I can help you, or no, I'm not the right person to help you. This is what I recommend you do, which is often where I go.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. Again, boiling down to that, our main ethos, right? We're there to help the animal. So actually, we don't need to be selling ourselves because we can help that animal. We don't need to pretend that we can. We can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so the next thing that I do is I do have a patient registration form as well. So this is a more like formalized way for people to submit information about their dog or their horse. But the other reason I wanted to mention this with regards to confidence is I have sections in there where they need to accept my terms and conditions, my privacy policy, and kind of the legalities around how physio works in the UK. And that just gives me more confidence that they have looked at those terms and conditions, that they know I'm a proper business, that I'm professional, and I treat, I am there for the dog, but I am also running a business. And actually, since implementing like that patient registration form that I'm very happy with now, my professional identity confidence definitely improved as well. And then I also, obviously in the UK, like I said, and for any listeners in the UK, we do need vet consent. And what I make sure I try and get as well is actually the full medical history export from the vets, if we can. Absolutely try this. Yes, it doesn't always get sent over, but I always try and get this, because if you can go through that medical history in more detail, again, you're going to have less surprises. You're going to have more that you can prepare with. I think that's really powerful. So really recommend people to try and get hold of that if you can, for sure. And it leads on nicely to something else, is that if they're working with any other professionals, I always try and contact them for a report. Or when I say report, it's not always that formal. Sometimes it's a voice note from a behaviorist or something, less formal. But I just try and have as much information as I can. And I even ask for pictures and videos in quite a lot of cases, especially if they're experiencing they're experiencing a very specific observation, like, oh, my dog's legs tremble after we do a certain activity, or my horse can't maintain canter on the right lead. I will ask them to send videos and pictures so I can have a look at that, and it can add to my assessment as well. So then you've got all of this information though. What are you going to do with it? And I personally think we should all be allocating plenty of time to prep. So personally, I try and block out time in my calendar before any initial consults. So I try and do this the day before, if that works, or a few days before, to review all of this information. And it gives me time then to look up any unfamiliar clinical conditions or disciplines and come up with a basic plan of how I might approach the rehab. Obviously, it's always dependent on the patient, but I will have a vague plan of okay, these might be the types of exercises that I might prescribe the dog, but obviously need to do my assessment. So that's personally what I do, is literally block out time. I'm a very big fan of time blocking, because we're all very busy and we need to figure out how to manage all of that without compromising our work-life balance. So this is personally what works for me in my business.
So have you found with that preparation time, has that gotten less as you've gained experience? So as a new practitioner, that took much more time than it does now?
Yeah, so short answer, yes. I definitely used to allocate a lot more time, but even as a more experienced practitioner, I still think you need a fair amount of time if you're going to go through that medical history as well in detail. Maybe you're going to review videos. Maybe you're going to have a phone call with I work quite closely with a few dog behaviorists on more tricky cases, and I always try and liaise with them first. So short answer, yes. I think if you're a new grad, do allocate more time. But even those in practice, I still think you need a fair amount of time, especially for the more complex cases.
Yeah, I like that. I love that you're taking the time to make contact with the other professionals that are working on this specific case. And I think there's so much there for us to unpack, but potentially in a different session, because the benefits go beyond just building our confidence. It goes into referrals and better multidisciplinary relationships, and ultimately better outcomes, because we can work with multiple professionals. So I think that's a really great one.
100%. And I'm so passionate about multidisciplinary team working, like especially in the last few years, as I've got more confident and able to work with other practitioners more, I've just seen the outcomes for our patients have just skyrocketed for that. So yeah, maybe another conversation for an in-depth chat another time.
Yeah, on the multidisciplinary team. I love it. I'm making a note.
Okay, lovely. So next point is, there is nothing worse than arriving for your first consult already on the back foot. Like maybe there was traffic and you're late, or you can't find the place. Honestly, like it just shakes you and like rattles this nervous energy. And there are some small things you can do that just mean that you're more likely to turn up feeling ready to go. So a couple of things that I always make sure. I make sure I have all the address details really clearly. I've planned my time. I'm a mobile practitioner. I always plan to be at an initial consult, if possible, about 10 minutes before. And I'll just sit in the car and I'll review the notes for the patient or reply to some messages, because I know myself and it really stresses me out being late. I have such a thing about being late and it just makes me feel not good at all. So personally, that's what I do, and I make sure I have all the information. The other thing as well, Ané, I'm not sure how it is in South Africa, but in the UK, a lot of horse yards have like a big gate, okay, and they often have a code. I cannot count the amount of times in the past that I've been stuck outside of that gate trying to call the owner because I don't have the code. They're out getting the horse in and I'm getting later and later, and it's super stressful. So now I always check, is there any access requirements? Like, do I need to know a code? Because it seems like such a small thing, but honestly, it just takes so much unnecessary stress away so we can focus on what's actually important.
Yeah, and the owners forget that. They do.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, and then you've got into your consults, and my big bit of advice here is have a really clear, structured system that you follow. Now, of course, every patient is different. Like, we know that. Like, I don't always do my assessments in the same order if there's behavioral considerations. But if you have a basic plan of like your structured clinical method, it means that if you feel a little bit nervous, you can just fall back on your system and like, you know that you're not missing anything. And also when you leave that client and you're writing up your notes afterwards, you're not like, oh, I forgot to do a neuro assessment, because you know that you've gone through and you've like ticked everything off. So this really helps, I think, with confidence, so that you can focus on the patient rather than worrying about, you know, what comes next. Have I done everything? So I think that's really helpful. And in the actual consult as well, I really like to take pictures and videos, obviously ensuring that the owner's happy for us to do so. But this has tons of positive effects, I feel like, on confidence, because you can go back and check things afterwards. You can double check your assessments, make sure you're happy with, you know, how you've approached that. But something I find really useful is just using slow motion feature, because yes, we need to be able to assess patients without videoing them. Of course we do, but like, we know that the human eye is actually not that great at subtleties. There is enough research on that now. So to track like small changes, I love taking slow motion videos. For anyone watching this lovely dog over here is Bramble, one of my gold star patients. We were doing a pain relief trial with her. And because it was such subtleties with her, we actually took videos, loads and loads of videos each week. And I taught her owner how to take videos. I would slow those down, and it meant I could track like very small changes over time that, to be honest, I don't know if I necessarily would have picked up on all of that if I hadn't slowed them down. And I've been in practice a little while, you know? So honestly, I think this is so powerful and we forget about it a lot. And especially those in their first few years, really recommend take lots of pictures and videos, go home, slow them down. You will develop as a practitioner so much faster if you do this. So lots of other benefits, but particularly for confidence and clinical skills, that's why I think this is really helpful.
Oh, 100% agree. And the owners love to see them as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I will almost always, when I'm sitting and doing my notes after a consult, rewatch all the videos.
Yeah.
Be like, what did I miss?
Exactly. And again, it's that mindset shift of if we missed a few things, that's okay. It's what we do next, right? It's how we approach that. And then I think it's so important to give ourselves the time in these consults, because if you rush through a clinical exam or a discussion, the chances of you saying something you regret or missing something is just so much larger. So something you can really do to help your confidence is just book out plenty of time for initial consults. Mine are still very long. I just enjoy having the time to really spend with that patient and make sure I'm comfortable that I've done everything. Really take your time with each assessment as well. And if you need to stop and think, that is absolutely fine. Like, our clinical reasoning skills, I mean, there's so much going on in our heads, right? There's so many things to think about. It's okay to just pause and stop and take a minute, and even redo an assessment if you need to as well. Like, if you're like, oh, was there a small bit of crepitus in that joint? Put the leg down and just say to the owner, I'm just going to double check this clinical assessment again, because I just want to make sure I'm being super thorough so we know where to go. It's way better to do that rather than be at home afterwards going, was there crepitus? Or I don't know. It's, I think, way better to just double check, take your time.
So on this note, do you sit and are you filling in your consult forms while you're with the patient, right? So you have your checklist next to you, and as you're doing everything, you're writing it down, and then you send that report, or you give that report pretty much as it is, or are you sitting afterwards and writing down your notes and then sending it to your clients? How do you do that?
Yeah, thank you, Ané. So I feel like loads of therapists do this in very different ways. So I think it's a really interesting conversation, and it is about finding what works for you. I personally nowadays take notes on my phone. So I do take notes as I go along. Yes. Usually in an initial consult, after every kind of section of the assessment, I'll just pause and take my notes on my phone. And then kind of pause before I summarize to the owner. So yes, I do that. If it is like repeat clients that maybe I've been seeing for ages, I might do the entire assessment and then write some notes, or even sometimes more on the equine side, because I go to some yards where I see like lots of horses and I'm just working through them all day on my own. I'll sometimes voice record my clinical notes as well. I just find that's a little bit quicker, actually. Or I'll get back in the car, like after seeing a client, and then voice record. So, and then put that into my notes file afterwards. So personally, yes, I'm always writing some type of notes, because if you've got a full day of clients, personally, I can't remember all those tiny intricacies at the end of the day. And I pride myself on trying to be super comprehensive and, you know, do the best job I can, which we're all trying to do. But for me, that is taking your time and writing the notes. And then with regard to owner reports, I then go home or sit in the car afterwards and type up a separate report for the owner, which has not all of the clinical detail that I've included in my own notes. It's the summary of what's important for their horse or dog, and then their remedial exercise plan, etc. So that's a completely separate report that I then send to the owner afterwards.
Okay, so I find that interesting, because what I will do is I will generally spend less time in preparation for a consult and more time afterwards, an initial consult now specifically. So I'll block out a little bit of extra time after I've seen the patient to make sure that you know, I've done everything to do really thorough notes for the owner and for the vet to send them a good report, and then I will so I block out more time afterwards is what I'm saying, and I'll generally do that directly after seeing them. So instead of going from an initial consult to the next patient to the next patient, especially if I'm mobile, I want to have extra time. I want to sit somewhere quiet, and I want to go through everything and check everything and make sure that I'm happy with how that went, and then to send that client the information in as short a space as possible. Because I feel like very often when you're mobile, you're going through a whole day, and then you don't do your notes that evening, and then you don't do your notes the next evening, and you don't do them the next day, and then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks and you still haven't sent that initial consult, their notes. So that would be my tip, is I try and do those ones specifically pretty much immediately after the consult so that I don't forget stuff.
No,
Yeah.
that makes loads of sense, Ané. So I would say that my write-up for the initial definitely takes a lot longer, for sure, because I also need to send reports to the behaviorist, the vet. Like, as you know, I'm super keen on us working together. So yeah, that initial one, I have to block out more time afterwards. It's more the follow-ups that I could do like in the car. I wouldn't be able to do the other one. It's interesting you say about blocking time directly afterwards, because one of my more experienced mentees actually said that's what she does. She works in London and she will actually have like lunch, say, afterwards and go to a cafe for like, you know, an hour and a half or so and sit and do it then. And I was like, oh, that's quite a good idea. Maybe I'll try that actually. Well, it's like really fresh in your mind. And the organization piece about getting your notes done, lots of mentees come to me with that as a problem. Personally, what works for me is I have to time block it so that I will not leave it for too long, essentially. I'll try and leave time at the end of the day to do them. So try and get back in enough time to complete those. Or the following day, I will block out time almost like it's an appointment to make sure that I do those. That's what I do nowadays. I used to leave them till the evening, but I am very passionate about reclaiming my outside life. I may love my job, but I am super passionate about like professional boundaries, work-life balance. Another topic maybe for us at some point. But yeah, so that's what I do now. But I love that, and I might consider blocking out time in the day for the initial write-up.
Oh, you should. It's actually one of my favorite parts of being a mobile physio is that I get to go sit at random awesome cafes and have coffee in places and do my notes. Like that's one of my favorite things. I love coffee and I love pretty places. And so this is a nice way to do that. I don't necessarily want company when I'm doing that. That makes this perfect, you know. So
I love
try
that. Yeah, and you get to treat yourself almost, but it's part of the job.
Yes, exactly. I love it.
Oh,
okay.
Fantastic. Okay, so what happens then though if you get to a initial consult and maybe there's something unexpected, or you just get super nervous and your brain goes blank? I've been there. It is horrible. I get it. So with those unexpected scenarios, this is actually an example of one of those. I turned up to an initial consult and this lovely dog here had been referred to me because there was a history of forelimb lameness, nothing diagnosed, but the vet was happy for an initial look from the physio, basically. But I turned up and there was significant lumbosacral discomfort. I mean, anyone watching this can see the posture of that dog as well. There was clear hind limb gait abnormalities and discomfort on certain joint range of motion tests. So that could really throw you, right? If you and the owner were expecting the dog to basically just maybe have a little bit of something in the forelimbs, but nothing else, that can really shake your confidence. And it's tricky. And you will come across these things. You will. This happens a lot, that you go out to a patient and there's a lot more going on than you had been referred for. So what I really recommend here, and if you're feeling nervous, is firstly, just slow down. Just take a minute and pause, okay? Don't rush into anything. Take a big breath and just stop, because actually it's fine to take your time and decide here. It's better to do that than quickly say something to the owner that actually isn't quite the right approach for this animal. And then if you want, maybe repeat an assessment. This also buys you time. If you want a little bit more time to think, just say, oh, do you mind just doing one more walk up and down just so I can double check something, while you're quickly, like, the cogs are whirring in the head to figure out what to do about that scenario. And try and use phrases like, let me just consider the right approach for a minute, and pause. That's absolutely fine. But then try and have some systems which you need to follow in those scenarios. Because like I said, in the United Kingdom, if we suspect that there is a pathology or issue going on that isn't diagnosed, we have to refer back to the vet. Like, legally, that's how it works. So that would be falling back on your system of how you approach that. But if you hadn't stopped and paused and taken the time, you might have kind of forgotten that you have to go down that route, and then be really regretting it afterwards, or having to pull yourself out of that whole. So these situations will happen. And these are kind of some of the things that have helped me to now be a lot more confident when the unexpected occurs.
I really love that you've described the scenario, because one of the differences in kind of what you're saying and how I prefer to practice is, like you said, that preparation time. You really want to have a good picture of what is going on with the patient before you see them. I don't like to do that, because then if I come in with too set of an expectation, then it throws me if the picture doesn't match, right? Or I feel like I'm more likely to miss things because I've got my blinkers on and this is what I'm looking for. So there's like this bias of I'm going to find what I expect to find. So I prefer to come in with more of a blank slate into an initial consult, which is really interesting. And I don't think one way is right or wrong. I think it's just a case of know yourself and know what you need. And I love that you're saying here, fall back on your system. And that's right. And that's good. It's just your findings should be as neutral as possible. You don't have to dramatize them. I remember in one of my very first consults, thank goodness I was still a student, so we shall excuse my behavior, but I started crying because what I found in my mind was really serious, and I was heartbroken for this patient. And obviously, again, thank goodness I was a student, because as a professional, that wouldn't be great to do, cry in the car afterwards. But the point is, your findings should be neutral, and you should be able to handle them that way, because you don't have to over dramatize it. Yes, there's potentially lumbar pathology. Let's figure this out, refer it back. I think we've missed something. Let's have a deeper look in this direction. I think that's one of the superpowers of having a multidisciplinary team. And it's one of the great things that vets can rely on us to pick up things that they might have missed. They don't have the same palpation toolkit that we have. So see it as that, is that they're going to pick up different things from what you're going to pick up. We need to bring them together. So I really love that.
Yeah, no, and that's such an important point though, Ané, is about the preconceptions, because you're completely right. It is so detrimental to go in going, okay, this horse has a SDFT injury. That's the only thing that we're going to find, you know? And I think I've seen this time and time again when I used to have a lot of students on placement where they would zone in too quickly onto the primary pathology and not pick up that there was actually a hind limb issue going on. So yeah, 100%. And I love that, Ané, that it depends kind of who you are maybe as a person, what works best for you. For me, that does work well, doing loads of prep before, but I do have to consciously then not forget it, but I have to take a step back. And that's why, again, I follow like a structured system where we'll look at the head position, the forelimbs, the back, the hind limbs, so that I'm trying to remove myself from the existing pathology. But if anyone listening is thinking, you know, oh, actually, I do get biased very easily, maybe you're someone like you, Ané, where you need to maybe not read up too much beforehand, so that you go in making sure that you kind of have actually picked up everything in the patient in front of you.
It's good. Try all the ways and see what works for you.
Exactly. It's trial and error. I've tried a lot of ways over the years. I really enjoy always trying new things in my business. So, but yeah, it's really about finding what works for you. So my final couple of tips for anyone with their initial consults is, I don't know, Ané, if you ever experienced this when you first graduated, but someone would, like an owner would ask you, oh, what does that laser do? And you're suddenly like going through like the exam style answers that you've done. We do these exams called OSCEs, observed structured clinical exams, where you have to talk about like the cellular detail. And suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, how do I even explain that to an owner? And it really throws you. So I actually really recommend to prepare some like very basic explanations for common questions that owners are going to ask, so that you don't feel like shook and stumble over your words, basically. And then my final tip is that it is perfectly fine to have resources to refer to. And actually, if you had some like quick access resources on your phone, maybe it's, if you use electrotherapies, it's the settings for electrotherapies to make sure that you don't, you're not there like doubting yourself, like, oh, was it 200 hertz? Was it 250? I don't want to get it wrong. Just make something small on your phone that you can access, and just to, again, give you the confidence that you're doing the right thing. Okay, so that brings us to the end of, like I said, some of the points that have really helped me and my mentees kind of improve our confidence over time. Now, anyone who's done any mentoring with me will know that I'm such a big fan of making sure we leave with some like very clear, actionable points to improve. So for anyone watching or listening to this, I would really recommend that you maybe pause here, think about your initial consult process, and is there anything now, any ideas that you've got through this conversation that you could actually maybe implement to improve your confidence in these sessions? And I also, like I said, huge fan of time blocking. I think all of our having just a long to-do list and just adding another thing to it can be quite overwhelming. So personally, I like to block out time or go into my diary and say when I'm going to do a task. So to take that even further next step on your action, I'd really recommend scheduling a time that you're going to look at that.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Paw Prosper. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free. So go and check them out at pawprosper.com. And also don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit on Saturday, the 14th of November, 2026. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the Vet Rehabber community. Onlinepethealth members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.